and welcome to Uncle Online Academy. Today we want to talk about spatial mapping. They include identity mapping, constant mapping, and composite mapping. Identity mapping, this is a type of mapping that the elements in the domain, they have images that look exactly like them in the codomain. That means if the element in the domain is 1, it is going to map with 1 in the codomain, an element that looks similar to the element in the domain. That is, the element in the domain looks the same with the image or its image in the codomain. Each element in the domain, you remember, must have an image in the codomain. So if the element in the domain is A, its image in the codomain is going to be A. If the element in the domain is B, its image in the codomain must be B. So that is how we know identity mapping. And it is always 1-to-1, which means that one element always have only one image. One element always have one image, and it is also onto, which means that none none of the elements in the codomain is left out. None of the elements in the codomain is left out. So all the images, all the elements in the domain, they have images in the codomain, and all the elements in the codomain are images of elements in the domain. So no element is left out in the codomain. So that is what we call identity mapping. For instance, this one we have here. Here, A maps to A, B maps to B. The arrangement does not matter. Whether the A is up here and it is down here, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that the image of A in the codomain must be A, and the image of B in the codomain must be B. So that is how we know identity mapping. The arrangement of the elements in both sides does not matter. Now let's look at constant mapping. But before we look at that one, this number 3, that the domain, the codomain, and the range are equal. Yes, we expect that because if the if the identity mapping is onto and 1-to-1, it means that no element is left out in the codomain. And since all the elements in the domain, they have the same or similar elements in the codomain, then it means that the domain and the codomain and the range, which is all the images, they are going to look the same. What we have in the domain is what you are going to have in the codomain, and that is the same thing you are going to have in the image. Because it is onto, no element is left out. So that makes all the elements in the codomain to become elements in the range. Now let's go to constant mapping. In constant mapping, just like the name also suggests, it means a mapping in which all the elements in the domain map to only one element, the same element in the codomain. So all the elements in the domain, they have a single element or a single image in the codomain. So whether we have one 2 or even 100 elements in the domain, all of them are going to have the same image in the codomain. So in constant mapping, the range is always 1. In constant mapping, the range is always, we always have only one element in the range, because all the elements, they will map to one element. So this is a constant mapping. So whether we have 100 elements in the codomain, if it must be a constant mapping, all the elements in the domain must map to just one single element in the codomain. Okay, so it has only one range. Okay, just like I've said before, it has only one range because the elements or the number of image in the codomain is just one. All the elements in the domain map to one element in the codomain. Now, the composite mapping. For composite mapping, we usually have 3 sets involved in composite mapping, and each of the elements in the domain, they will produce an image in the codomain. Then the image in the codomain will produce another image somewhere. So that means that the first image is an intermediate that is used to produce the final image. So the first codomain is an intermediate codomain, which is now used to produce the final images. So like this one we have here, this is A. The A in the domain will produce an image E, and then this image E produces an image H in another codomain. So this second one is an intermediary that transmits an image. It collects an image and converts it to an ordinary element and use it to produce another image in the second codomain. So this is what we call composite mapping. It usually involves more than 2 sets, whereby there is a transmission of image. In composite mapping, there is a transmission of image from one codomain to another codomain. I hope that this lesson is very clear. Thank you.